Alright guys, to the left we have the Sony A9G, to the right we have the LG B10. I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit of a play-by-play, just kind of letting you know what I saw and, how these TVs stack up. So, the short answer is that the Sony A9G does win because overall it just has the better color between the two displays. And I don't mean better color marginally, it's vastly superior in almost every way that counts post-calibration. Now that being said, the LG does exhibit moments where it has more vibrant shades of certain colors like pinks, cyans can be a little bit more vibrant from time to time, but ultimately speaking, it just lacks the refinement needed to jump to the absolute next level. And that's the unfortunate part about this whole endeavor, because they do go back and forth and they take their little blows, but ultimately the Sony A9G was just doing that much more for picture quality. Now, I'm going to try to lock in my focus here. If anything becomes out of focus, I hope you guys will bear with that, because I'm trying to find a way to give you guys the best representation of image quality here, but it's going to be very difficult to pull this off. Now, my thing here is that before I start telling you which one is by far the better one, understand that, again, both are going to do something very different from one another, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're not here to make excuses or anything like that. Okay, so it's like this. Sony, with their depth, is untouched. LG really needs to come up with an answer. Now, my recommendation, if there's anybody from LG watching this video, is to create a black adjustment feature like what Sony has, because that helps Sony make up a lot of the room that LG is lacking. LG's image quality is just way too flat. That is the word that I've constantly used through the years, and that still holds true to this day. Now, again, doesn't mean that you can't express beautiful shades of color, vibrant shades of color, you definitely can. And the LG B10 is actually brighter than the Sony A9G. So that's something to think about. But as kind of like a consequence, it's not giving you the same level of depth and pull and draw to the image that you would expect. And that's just really unfortunate, because I know that it should be capable of it, but it's just not. Now, both are going to have an overly blue hue. I have no way of really representing accurately what you're going to be seeing. So just kind of use the commentary. Do not take this footage as 100% accurate, because you're not going to see a 100% accurate representation. Now, as I look at it with my naked eye, the Sony A9G has the significantly better image quality. As I look on it, on the camera, the LG looks like it has better image quality, but it definitely doesn't. Sony just has more depth, and the camera is creating more depth somehow than what LG has. So please seriously listen to the commentary, because I really can't express just how much more depth is on the Sony. Though, counteractively though, the LG is brighter than the Sony. So you are able to see some extra shades of color in some scenes that you wouldn't be able to see on the Sony, because its color volume isn't going to be as high, because it can't hit as high peak brightness in some scenarios. Now, that being said, there are instances where, again, no matter how hard you try, you're just not going to be able to escape the limitations of LG. And one of the biggest limitations of LG is color accuracy. They just don't have as many pencils in the pencil box to create colors, and that's what I noticed on the majority of things that I was watching. Now, I'm using the Wonderful World of Wonder calibration disc, and I'm not using popular movies or things like that, because this is made for display calibrations. It's made for display evaluation, so I'm using it for that purpose. However, I can't show you guys like blockbuster movies, because they're trying to make it so very difficult and it would get taken down immediately. So again, for everybody wondering, why does he only use cartoons? Because this is what I can show you. If you want to see more stuff, you're just going to have to buy the TV and kind of run it through the gamut yourself, or go to the store or something like that, but you won't be seeing my settings with it. So for people already typing and throwing shade in the comment section, just chill out. Now, that out of the way, the LG does have better motion than the Sony. I've noticed overall it's just smoother, but not by so much that the Sony is just terrible. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's gonna maybe be tomato for a lot of people, but for me, it was very clear that LG had better motion than the Sony. However, it's weird, because when you get to things like 60 FPS, Sony has better motion than LG. So I feel like it's just those lower frame rates that Sony really struggles with. And this is totally Sony's fault, because for whatever reason, they're idiots and they decided to rip out every motion processing feature you had outside of custom. I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So you used to have smooth, you used to have standard, you used to have all these different ways of setting up motion, even changing Cinemotion. You can't do that anymore. And that really is crippling the Sony's ability to compete with the LG, who has all of those features. And LG's motion processing is beating a master series Sony, a master level Sony performance. And that shouldn't happen if Sony wants to still brag about their, world-class processing and things of that nature. But, that's one of the things that did end up happening. Now, when we look at this particular scene, it's very clear that Sony has the contrast. Like, if you can't see it on camera, I'm telling you, Sony is dominating with contrast. I'll try to lower my ISO so you can see a little bit more. Sony is just hitting different, man. I tell you what, you will go back to the Sony over and over again. Now, post-calibration, both are doing a good job of rendering that reflection. LG looks a little less pronounced than the Sony does, but it's still really, really good. I tell you right now, when you look at this particular scene, you have a very similar thing happen like what you had on the A9G, where it doesn't have every single accurate shade of purple it should in Buzz Lightyear's costume, where the B10 does have that accuracy there. However, the A9G is not as bad as the A8H was on this particular scene, so that is something to keep in mind here. The A8H was targeting more vivid color, but it was doing so at the expense of overly cooling off the color temperature, and no matter how hard you calibrate, you just couldn't get most of that stuff back. Where the A9G doesn't have that problem, and just a few tweaks in either direction is definitely doing a lot better. This is one of those rare cases and examples where the Gen 1 chip does better than the second generation chip. And make no mistake, the A8H is running the second generation the X1 Extreme chip. So something to think about there. It's a pain, but it is what it is. I will say though, the A9G is substantially more expensive than the LG B10. And if you were looking at it from a monetary perspective, the LG B10 is an exceptional television because it not only retains really vivid color accuracy at higher levels of peak brightness, but it also does something I find truly impressive, which is, anytime you have images like this on the screen, it's able to hold its own going toe-to-toe against a master series that costs, twice as much in some cases. It's incredible. And I think if that's a part of the argument and that's what we're bringing to the table, I think it's important we represent that, because LG is definitely way more competitive than Sony is as far as the pricing, and that's just as real as it gets. Now, as we look at this example here, the LG has more accurate shades of purple. The Sony is not representing that shade as accurately as the LG. So again, what's supposed to be their entry level, their entry-most television, LG is holding its own really, really well. And again, I'm looking at this with my naked eye. I don't know what the camera's gonna show you, but I'm telling you right now, the B10 is definitely doing a great job as far as holding its own with some shades of color. Some shades can be more vibrant and things of that nature. Though, again, overall, Sony does have the better image quality, and that's just bar none what I have seen. And color reproduction, it does stretch out those shades, and you do tend to have more shades of color than what LG does ultimately end up producing as an end product. Whereas again, some examples like that flower don't exactly show the full story. So you can't just take certain pictures or certain examples, you have to look at the full story, because now as we switch to this landscape scene, the LG is losing by a lot when we look at the hues and expressions behind all the colors overall in a full scene. So again, it gets very, not necessarily nitpicky, but nuanced to right down to what you're watching on the screen. And when that's the case, the B10 has an exceptional value for the dollar. And I can't stress just how important that is for people trying to, figure out what's a good TV on the market. Now, that being said, I would want to point out also that the LG does have better gaming features like HDMI 2.1. It has HGIG for HDR gaming. It has the G-Sync capabilities. So it's not at all a bum leg TV as far as feature set. But as I started using these TVs for gaming, I was doing some injustice. I just found over and over and over again, I was going back to the Sony saying, wow, this picture is taking me away. So here's the takeaway here. If you're somebody that values picture quality, raw image quality above all other facets of how you buy a TV or what you do with the TV, the Sony is where it's at. It has an unparalleled level of color contrast, is the best I've ever seen on any OLED in my life. Like, they separated colors and light detail and everything like the best I've ever seen it. Whereas the LG is for somebody who you want more features. You don't really care as much as having the absolute tippy top picture quality, but you still want high picture quality, because believe me, it's pumping out great quality. It's really nuanced down to that. But if you want the best, Sony is the best. If you want something that's more feature oriented, then LG is going to be your guy. Now, for full disclosure here, I am using BT 2020 on both displays. So LG wouldn't be able to come as close to the Sony if we didn't use that secret colorist menu, which you can access with your Magic Remote by typing in 111311. So that's something to, kind of say there. Hopefully none of you guys update your B10 so you can keep that in. I'm hearing mixed reports. Some people say they've updated it and the menu's still there. Other people say that they've updated it and the menu's now gone. Either way you look at it, you don't want to update this TV, because I think it's hitting pretty heavy where it's at. I think it's doing a fantastic job. Just out the gate. So you don't really need a firmware update. You just need to dial it in and then you're good to go. Again, both TVs doing very good with what they do, but you have to be mindful that it's going to be different, and they're going to have different things that they bring to the table. Sony's color is undeniable. Like when we get to this pond, all the hues in the pond that I'm seeing with my naked eye versus LG that doesn't really have all those hues, is definitely making a difference, and a big difference. And it's happening more and more. And the contrast behind the text now, as I watch the text flow in on the backgrounds, it's just way more pronounced on the Sony, where LG, again, just isn't kicking it out like that. Now, I want to kind of get away from the Wonderful World of Wonder calibration disc, and we're going to go into my main menu here on the PlayStation 4, which is the Blu-ray player that I'm using to do this. And we're going to go into, what do you say? I'm going to go into, I'll just go through a couple of screenshots. Why not? What the hell? Just to kind of show you guys a little bit of the picture quality. And I'm going to walk you through it, play-by-play style. So when I look at images like this, I can see that the Sony has way more color. Now it's showing LG as being more dark. I'll open up the ISO so you can kind of see a little bit better. LG is just not hitting with the same intensity of color. I don't know if you can see that, but it's definitely the case. We'll go to the next image where you can see LG, though, having the better peak highlights behind Kratos. So it's so hard, these comparisons, because they again, like I was saying, trade back and forth. And LG being the brighter of the two displays kind of plays a role here, as you're seeing, again, stretched out across multiple different types of scenes. So again, like for somebody looking for just a definitive, just say it's better, it's not. It's really gonna play by the scene. Like right now, the candles way better on the Sony, every color, every expression better on the Sony. Though again, overall brightness is going to LG. It's so hard, because you want to say that one's a definitive winner, but there isn't a definitive winner. Now, again, if you want color, you want the best image quality, that's for Sony. And then when you get to LG, it's not like they're doing poorly, especially given the price point. You're talking on sale, you can pick the LG up for, what is it, $1,200 after taxes? That's nothing. You can do really, really, really less as far as price wise when you're looking at LG's entry level versus Sony, who's, no matter what, they're just always going to overcharge. And I think that's some bullshit, because not everybody wants to be overcharged all the time. Sometimes people want to see, good picture quality, but they don't want to pay an arm and a leg. And I don't think that's a unreasonable request for most consumers to make. All right, so we're going to lower down the ISO now. I'm seeing a few zebras here and there. Hopefully all this stuff is in focus. I have no idea what the final product's going to look like, so just don't freak out if it's not perfect. And one of the things that really shows the contrast differences are images like this. I don't know if you can see it on your end, but the Sony basically is like a 3D king, but the LG is definitely lacking a little bit more in terms of the overall image quality, and it just appears, generally speaking, a lot more flat by comparison. Now in scenes like this, both are hurling out equal levels of peak brightness, so it's not like the Sony is dimmer all the time. It's really just going to depend on the scene that they're in. They do trade back and forth, like I was saying, a lot. Now when we look at scenes like this, it's way over bright on the camera. I'm gonna have to lower it down. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know what you can see, but Sony is killing it with the color blue. And the darkness and the depth, that's really just taking the cake here, where LG, again, they target global brightening. They're not doing intelligent brightening. And because of this, it's killing their picture quality. It's absolutely destroying their picture quality. And you're just painting the whole scene because it's bright as a bright scene that needs to be brightened, and you're not intelligently finding those highlights, LG. And that's the biggest problem with LG that I am noticing time after time after time after time with all of these comparisons that I've done. Now I want to show you guys this scene in Injustice here, so you guys can maybe get an idea as well as to how these two displays are hitting compared to one another. I'm going to turn up the ISO here. I hope you can see this all right. I don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, I see some zebras in the background, so we've got some overexposure, but this is the best I can do. Now, as I look at it with my naked eye, the LG is brighter, the Sony is more three-dimensional. And we're just going to kind of play this off by eye. Now, the Sony has more judder and jitter. However, both do have judder and jitter because this is not a smoothly shot scene in this particular game. But it's that picture quality that I'm looking at coming out of the Sony that's impressive. However, when you get to more scene intense moments, the LG is going to be better for motion, like these fast moving scenes. When I say fast moving scenes, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things with multiple moving elements, like the trucks, like the cars, things like exactly like this. Those fast moving scenes where they're zigging and zagging and moving and bobbing and weaving. The Sony is going to exhibit a lot more in the way of, you know, jitters and artifacts than what LG is going to. And I think that's because LG just really wanted to win the whole motion thing, and I think they're doing a damn good job. Honestly speaking, the Sony A900E is like the best motion I've seen out of Sony, and I haven't seen them replicate it since. They're really struggling to get on their game with that, so I think that's rather unfortunate. But either way, as you guys can clearly see, it's very competitive. They do very well, and that's a good showing for LG, because what that means is that LG is hitting extremely hard and definitely hitting well above its weight. So if you were somebody that maybe thought LG was just going to lose, period, no matter what, right? You just went in it, Sony's the king, Master Series, LG will not have a single blow in. That's just not how these things work. And I want to paint this picture for you guys so that you understand that, again, this is not about being biased. This is not about picking sides. This is about just kind of reporting to you what these differences are so that you know for yourself and your family going forward. But that being said, I had a lot of fun doing this comparison. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And again, this is pretty much what it is. Sony for color, by far, dimensionality color, that's the TV for you. But LG is probably going to take everything else. But overall, if you had to ask me which one I pick as my winner, I would pick the Sony, because picture quality is the reason you buy a TV. And from a picture quality perspective, Sony is just unbeaten right now as far as what I'm seeing out of this image. LG just is not doing it like this. And I know the camera hues are getting screwed up now. The Sony looks overly green in hue. The LG even looks more green in hue. It does not look like that in real life. That's just the white balance of the camera really just fucking everything up. You're gonna have to seriously take this play by play as what I'm actually, as what I'm actually seeing on my end. But essentially, yeah, this is a very cool comparison. I love to see stuff like this, but now I'm like gazing at the Sony more as like this intense scene kind of draws out. So even though it has worse motion for sure than LG, that clarity and that color taking my breath away, stealing my heart, and that's ultimately why I pick the Sony A9G. But again, I want to thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.